Many comic villains flip between doing good and evil as if they're mere options on life's great buffet. While it's interesting having to guess whether a character will do the right thing, this pales in comparison to one of the most interesting storylines a villain can have, namely their reformation. And a surprising number of villains have made this storyline last for good, making their reformation permanent. From heroes who turned good so long ago that you forget they were even evil, to characters like Tomorrow Woman who exist solely to provide an interesting villain reformation, there are endless ways that this kind of storyline can be done, and all of them are equally fascinating. As much as it's fun to see villains be absolutely terrible, there's something about watching a bad guy redeem themselves that just makes you feel good. Not only does it make for more three-dimensional and ultimately more human characters, it also comes as a solid reminder that you don't have to be great 100% of the time to be a good person. You just have to want to do good. So with that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 comic villains who legit reformed and never turned back. Number 10, Clayface, Basil Karlo. With it being so hard not to feel bad for Clayface, professional actor turned spooky mud monster against his will, it was somewhat inevitable that the Batman villain would eventually get his time in the sun. And that he did, as in Detective Comics 934, we saw the sympathetic bad guy turned full hero, after he accepted an invitation from Batman to join the Dark Knight's forces. Perhaps the most heartbreaking moment of all of this has to be that Karlo immediately accepts the offer, leaving the tragic implication that he likely would have become good sometime before had someone just asked him nicely. While Karlo was briefly driven back into a monstrous rage by the Monster Men serum, it is worth noting that that isn't his fault, and that when the serum inadvertently cured him, Karlo immediately committed to trying to live a more moral life, egged on by his new inconspicuous appearance. Number 9, Deadpool. Having turned to mercenary work after being tortured pretty much endlessly by the facility that was supposed to cure his cancer, it initially seemed as though Deadpool was set out to be a villain for his entire comic run. Due to a healthy mix of fan interest and character potential though, this ended up being very much not the case. Throughout Deadpool's comic series, he became little by little more moral, evidenced in moments such as him releasing his roommate and semi-prisoner Blind Al and trying to join the X-Men even though he was naturally rejected. Although Wilson still has his share of impulsive or destructive moments, these are notably aimed at villains nowadays, instead of just whoever happens to be in the same room as the mercenary. Deadpool is still very much of an anti-hero as of today, but one who will not hesitate to risk his own regenerating flesh for a hero in need, especially if said hero happens to be Captain America. Number 8, Tomorrow Woman. Tomorrow Woman manages to provide perhaps the most impressive villain transformation to happen in a single issue of a comic, providing for a surprisingly sympathetic character in the span of literal pages. Despite being created explicitly to explode and kill the Justice League, Tomorrow refuses to murder the team she's grown to like, instead flying away the minute her detonation code is spoken. In her final moments, Tomorrow Woman is asked why she decided to help the League instead of destroying it as she was programmed to do. Her response? An error message, because Professor Tomorrow specifically never taught her the word freedom. Tomorrow Woman would be so beloved for this one heart-wrenching comic moment that should be brought back in Trinity 23 to enjoy a long and morally upstanding life with minimal further explosions. Number 7, Hawkeye. In another villain reformation that happened so long ago it's often forgotten, Hawkeye was initially introduced as the enemy of Iron Man in Tales of Suspense 57, albeit a reluctant villain, as Clint hilariously only became a villain after being mistaken for stealing some jewels he was actually intending to return. After this awkward start, Hawkeye would eventually be able to convince Iron Man and his fellow Avengers to let him join them in Avengers 16, after kidnapping Stark's butler in order to attract their attention. You know, like a hero would do. The same issue would also see both Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch join the ranks of the Avengers, but of the three of them, only Hawkeye would consistently persist as a hero to this day. Though often clashing with the Avengers, there's never a doubt that Barton always aims to do the right thing, and his aim is pretty damn good. Number 6, Plastic Man. With his charming, upbeat personality, his seemingly strong moral compass, and his bright and cheery jokes, it's almost unimaginable that Plastic Man has ever been anything but an upstanding member of society. The word almost is very important though, because E.L. O'Brien lived a good portion of his life as an everyday criminal, reformed by either sidekick Woozy Winks or some monks depending on which version of his origin story you want to believe. Either way, Plastic Man decided to use his newfound powers to turn his life around, and would go from being a common criminal to a hero that was friends with Batman, even if this may be a decidedly reluctant friendship on the Bat's part. With the Justice League being comprised of aliens, the daughter of a Greek god, and some billionaires, it's strangely comforting to have the former criminal standing shoulder to shoulder alongside them, as it shows anyone can become a hero. Number 5. Puma. Thomas Fireheart is an interesting case of redemption in that his initial villainy is motivated by trying to kill Spider-Man, and yet even a reformed Puma would gladly kill Spider-Man with a good enough excuse, given that he still holds an intense dislike for the character. What Puma does like, however, is his own honor, and thus the hired assassin turns from fighting Spider-Man to trying to defend him after Thomas feels he has dishonored himself by initially believing Spider-Man was a thief. The shapeshifter goes as far as to buy the Daily Bugle to try and redeem the web-slinger's name through the press, despite having a profound hatred for the hero on a personal level. Fireheart never grows fond of Parker, but does develop a grudging respect for him. Number 4. Emma Frost. Emma Frost's journey to becoming a superhero was one that saw her repeatedly fight, kidnap, and assault the X-Men before settling into a cushy job teaching some of the same mutants she had once tried to brutalize. Admittedly, Emma also has one of the most convincing villain transformations, as Frost turning to the X-Men for support after she discovers that the Hellions students she had been teaching are all dead feels genuinely believable for her character. Seeing the White Queen realize that her teaching methods were not infallible and that she does need the help the X-Men are offering is a surprisingly touching storyline, as it's the first glimpse at the softer side of her otherwise harsh character. Number 3. Falcon. It's hard to believe that when Captain America first met him, Sam Wilson was technically a villain, using his pet Red Wing to steal from people with little remorse. With some encouragement from Captain America, Wilson became the Falcon, swapping doing crimes for fighting them. After the pair worked together to take down the Red Skull, Falcon became Steve's newest ally, with Rogers endlessly encouraging Wilson's blossoming hero career. Despite a reveal in Captain America 186 that Red Skull had brainwashed Sam to be a sleeper agent, Falcon was right back to fighting crime the moment he was freed from Skull's control, proving that his time with Cap had truly made him a hero, whether it was initially orchestrated for evil purposes or not. Number 2. Venom. It's perhaps unfair to explicitly label Venom a villain, as the alien creature is largely influenced by those it wears, meaning that its more bloodthirsty moments are more the fault of any prior wearers than the symbiote itself. This is why Venom's reformation is as much about his hosts as it is about him. The change from carnivorous, scary alien to well-meaning liquid friend is initiated by 2 events: Flash Thompson's time wearing the symbiote and Eddie Brock's reconciliation with the creature. Between these positive influences, we see the Clintar steadily come to understand the consequences of their actions and begin to adjust accordingly. This is made particularly interesting by the fact that Venom doesn't have one single defining moment of change, more a series of epiphanies that lead him to being the anti-hero we all know and love today. Number 1. Black Widow. When you're trained to murder people indiscriminately in 7 million different ways before you're old enough to know your ABCs, there's a hefty chance that you may end up a villain. The ruthless education in murder that Black Widow received throughout her childhood is pretty good evidence of this, although she does prove how even this upbringing doesn't have to stop someone reforming and becoming a hero. Indeed, when Hawkeye and Black Widow initially get together, it is Natasha who suggests that they leave behind their mutual life of crime and instead join the Avengers. While Hawkeye gets the chance to do this, Black Widow is kidnapped by her childhood trainers and is brainwashed once more to become their loyal assassin. But as we all know, Black Widow does eventually manage to join the superhero team after breaking free of her mind control for the second time and working for S.H.I.E.L.D. to pay off her debts, marking the beginnings of a hard-fought-for career in heroism. And there you have it, folks, 10 comic villains who legit reformed and never turned back. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, catch me on Twitter at @USlyDogU, and have a great day wherever you are. Also, check out whatculture.com for daily news, lists, articles, quizzes, and all that other good internet stuff. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.